you advise us here on how to uh, respond to or utilize the activity that's going on now around the UFO issue, this kind of newly stimulated activity around this, to address this thing that you see as a central problem of our human family, of the onrushing great disruption. How can we respond to try to draw some of this extraordinary interest in this UFO phenomena into helping to solve this terrible crisis that we're causing ourselves?
Well, first of all, I really respond to what was just shared about, climate change. I think we are really we're really at a critical point, and I'm very much with that, and I follow that actually. If I take a scenario, if I'm kind of working in a scenario situation, and I've looked at other scenarios to see how that collaborates with observable information, observable activity, people's experience, anecdotal evidence. I mean, the things that would work in a court of law that may not work in intellectual pursuit. I mean, if 60 people see a person rob a bank, they probably rob the bank, and that's adequate. I mean, if thousands of people around the world who don't know each other are talking about an abduction experience that's very much similar, you can't just erase that as, a human fantasy, or that's an emotional need or something like that. I mean, we have to look at that evidence of human testimony, because that's really critical to understanding this. The situation I see us moving into is one of ever-increasing instability, upheaval, and discordance. And if what I'm looking at is, and I'm saying if this is really a long-term game plan of gaining control of the world without the use of force, and eliciting support from the human family to make that possible, because those who are here probably cannot breathe our atmosphere or deal with the biological hazard of our world, then a world of ever-increasing instability and upheaval is a perfect environment for intervention, because we will lose confidence in ourselves, we'll lose confidence in our science, we'll lose confidence in our governments and our norms. And then this is a perfect environment for, say, if this has a second stage to it, for that to take place. And I'm not saying absolutely, I'm sure of that, but whoever's here has been here for a long time, laying the groundwork for something for themselves. That's very clear to me. And as far as having the data, you're not going to have it. So to sit on the sidelines and say, I'm waiting for the data, means you're sitting on the sidelines, in my view. We're going to have to intuit this. We're going to have to address this based upon what we see and what we know. And I think citizens have to become aware that there's visitation occurring in the world, but it's not revealing who they are or why they're here. And that alone is important for people to know. They can come to their own conclusions about it. But that piece of evidence right there is important, because it does give us a sense of what's happening, as opposed to someone's flying around our skies and we don't know who they are. That is not where this narrative needs to go. We are not alone in our own world. And that's a big thing. So I think we gather the evidence that we have, and we have to build some working assumptions. Otherwise, everything's possible. This is possible. That's possible. And we're frozen in place because of the multitude of possibilities. But for me, I need to have a working assumption. It may prove to be wrong. You all can prove me wrong. But if what I'm aiming at is not wrong, then we have a serious problem on our hands. It's something that we haven't dealt with in 70 years. So I think there's a convergence of events going on with what's going on in the world and the presence of foreign races here. There is a real convergence of increasing instability and discord. And I'm talking about, resource wars happening in our century. I mean, we're leaving an era of relative affluence in certain parts of the world into a greater level of instability. And we're only at the opening stages of that. So this makes us very vulnerable to intervention. When you look at the history of intervention, even in Montezuma's time, I mean, many of the tribes that he had subdued were easily persuaded to oppose him. I mean, he had set together an empire based upon subversion and oppression. And so if you can get those races to rise up against him, they're eager to do that if you empower them to do so. So to turn us against ourselves, to turn us against our leaderships and our norms, that's already happening. I mean, I think much of the conspiracy theories that are being spawned are being encouraged by this presence in the world. And I don't think it's just we're living in an age of insecurity or an age of discouragement. I think we are also, something is feeding that whole process of breaking down our trust within ourselves and our countries. And what's going to take its place? If you take away people's sense of stability upon things they have relied upon for a long time, you are leaving them in limbo and very open for persuasion. That's how Nazism came to power in Germany, because Germany suffered massively from the Great Depression, far more than we did as an exporting nation. So when you have too much breakdown in society, other intervening forces have a great opportunity. And I'm just saying that we have to consider all aspects of this. All right. And if we go into interdimensionality, I think we'll get lost. We'll get lost in ourselves. We have the ability to discern certain things in our environment. We have a deeper knowledge within us, which I talked about in my presentation today, which can say, this is right, this is not right. We don't have evidence, we can't prove it. You know morally what's right and what's not right. You don't have to have data to prove that to